So, I'll get straight to the point. We're back to talking about actual weapons systems. So today, I'm pretty excited to talk about StarStreak. Now, StarStreak is, like Brimstone, one of my favourite missiles and British-made. So before you watch this, I'd just like to show you the capability of StarStreak. So in the description, I have, or will have put, a link to a video of StarStreak hitting a target, and it's just incredible to watch. So, I'll get on with it now. Please go watch that. StarStreak is a surface-to-air missile. It's man-portable. It can be deployed from a mobile launcher. It can be used from a lightweight launcher, something like, for a vehicle, the Alvis Stormer or the new Ajax vehicle. And it's recently, for sort of air capability on vehicles, it's been replaced with Rapier, mostly. StarStreak is unique. It's a high-velocity missile. It travels at Mach 4 to reach its target. I think it's still the fastest surface-to-air missile on the planet ever to exist. But the thing that caught my attention when I was first looking at it wasn't its speed. It wasn't these pretty incredible, again, really go check it out, these videos of slow-motion fin extensions as it emerged from its launching canister. No, the thing that I found unique about StarStreak is that it has 3 submunitions, and that may not sound so interesting at the beginning. That sounds rather ordinary. Alone, we see missiles like Scalp, the French naval cruise missile based on Storm Shadow. Those designs have submunitions, but the thing that makes StarStreak so effective is that these submunitions don't simply deploy moments before impact. They deploy early, and it looks rather cinematic, really. The missile splits, and you can see it from the beginning, into 3. And it's something that would be terrifying from the other end. 3 submunitions barreling towards you, the target. And when I say barreling, I mean literally barreling, as in rotating around each other. It's incredible. So, I actually once talked to someone who had operated he'd operated the lightweight mobile launcher of StarStreak, or the lightweight sort of carried launcher, which uses some sort of a pole-like mechanism and canisters on the top in order to launch units out. And he frequently referred to this stage of them actually getting into barreling once they're beyond their stage of propulsion and they're just locked onto the target, just getting to the target. He described it as the cyclone of no return. He once said that the missiles, once it had split into submunitions, whatever it was aimed at was finished. Nearly zero hope of using countermeasures or evading it. There was no return. StarStreak has super high maneuverability, even while travelling incredibly quickly, fastest on the planet. It can hit something, an aircraft, trying to evade it at 9 Gs, which is, I believe, 9 times the force of gravity. That's an intense amount of effort for any pilot to go through, and that's even if they could get to that point of manoeuvre. Effectively, it's really, really, really difficult to avoid it via any conventional means. And when it hits hard. It's estimated that while it doesn't have the same armor-penetrating capability, each of its submunitions, it's got these 3 submunitions, has the equivalent kinetic energy to the kinetic energy of a 40mm Bofors gun, which is just ridiculous. StarStreak can't be jammed with infrared countermeasures or radar countermeasures. It can't be suppressed with anti-radar missiles. I mean, I'm very tempted to say something like it can't be bargained with, it can't be reasoned with, it doesn't feel pity or remorse or fear, and it absolutely will not stop ever until you are dead. So, in regard to the history, and then I'll go on to actually talk about how it works. In regard to the history, in 1984, the MOD gave a development contract to British Aerospace, now BAE Systems, and Short's Missile Systems, now Thales Air Defence. And they were tasked with making a precision surface-to-air missile under the program name that I think they should have stuck with, ThunderBolt. The contract had 3 main requirements. and those were that it could be launched from certain platforms. So the first platform was a self-propelled launcher. That's a vehicle, basically something that can move around, and that is able to have it within a self-contained unit. A 3-round lightweight launcher, which is, for those of you who don't know, it's less common. It's basically a pole you stick in the ground that is supported. Maybe you use some sort of a support mechanism, and it contains 3 launch canisters that you can effectively use as a miniature turret from anywhere, and you can carry it around. And then there's the man-portable launcher, which is the sort of traditional surface-to-air missile launcher from a person. So you see someone down on one knee with something over their shoulder. That's what a man-portable launcher is. So, very, very long story short, because otherwise I'll run on forever. In 1997, when StarStreak was entered into service, it was designed to be a successor to the Javelin surface-to-air defense system, which you'll probably know. And we have been using it for various purposes ever since. So to go over its specifications, StarStreak has a 30.86 pound mass, a 0.13 meter diameter, and a 1.39 something length. I want to say 1.396 meter length. Anyway, the most modern variant, StarStreak 2, has a range of 7+ kilometers, which is an extension from before, at which it would have either limited ranges or not so limited ranges. So it could go from about 0.3 to basically up to 7 kilometers in range, but that wasn't necessarily so consistent. To talk about the warhead for a moment, because the warhead is rather interesting, it's not so conventional. The warhead utilises impact delay detonation as a mechanism, as a sort of fusing mechanism. No, it is really more of a detonation mechanism, but each of the submunitions themselves, which contain a warhead each, because it's not a singular missile unit, which these submunitions, for the rest of the video, I'm going to call them darts. Each of these darts, which contains a warhead, has a 2-pound tungsten alloy warhead at its forefront, basically, that uses PBX-98. For those of you who don't know what PBX-98 is, it's a bonded explosive. So this bonded explosive is plastic. It uses sort of long-chain polymers in order to get how would I put this? Get explosive powder to come together and effectively to stick together in certain processes which are difficult to carry out. Something's difficult to manufacture, and you need the warhead to be consolidated, or if something is designed to be low mass, because this is far less mass incorporated than using more mechanical fixtures. So this polymer bonded explosive binds the not gunpowder, but the explosive powder, meaning the warhead isn't just loose inside the front of the missile. It's not rattling around, which would make it far more difficult for the missile to target anything and maneuver, so that would have fairly disastrous consequences. The propulsion system has 2 stages, and they're not the stages you'd think. So there are basically 3 stages to this missile's life, I guess. So it launches as you'd see a rocket or anything launch and uses rocket propellant in order to get it out of its canister, and then it locks onto the target effectively and uses secondary propellant in order to propel itself towards the target, still as one unit, and then it splits into its submunitions. Each dart, which isn't actually propelled in itself, it's just a kinetic dart, which relies upon the kinetic energy of the prior Mach 4 propulsion stage. So the first stage, let's say, gets it far enough away from the operator using this rocket propulsion system, which I believe is solid fuel. The reason it needs to do that is to get it away from the operator, basically. The part that drops off, which you'd see on a space rocket, something similar, it needs to get away from the operator so as not to conk him on the head. And then once that has effectively left the end of the missile, it can activate its second stage propulsion, and that is for the missile as a whole unit, after which it sort of splits into 3 darts. So for these 3 darts, each dart is 396 millimeters long and 22 millimeters in diameter. And as I said before, I'm not sure whether I've said it before, but each dart has a 900-gram mass. So I really should be more consistent with the data I look up for these products. Though 900 grams is a lot more simple and memorable than 32 odd ounces. Realistically, I'm not sure what you're meant to measure mass in specifically, but in any case, in each dart, about half of its mass, half of this 900 grams, is the explosive charge itself. So each dart, in itself, it will have the warhead in the front, but it will have 2 sections to it effectively, the front section and the rear section. The front section is rotating. It's got 2 canards which rotate in order to basically not propel it, but continue it on its course, I guess, perform the role of canards, and then 4 fins at the back end which do not rotate. Since its introduction, it's also gained friend or foe identification ability, far greater range, and sealing, of course, because range and sealing for a surface-to-air missile are effectively the same thing, because it can only go its own range vertically. And it's also got superior lethality through improved targeting systems as computing technology has got better. Speaking of the targeting system it uses is something called SALCOS, which is short for Semi-Automatic Command to Line of Sight. It's a pretty complex process, but to simplify, and this is for stage 1, when you've got the intact missile, the singular unit, trying to propel at Mach 4 towards its target. To simplify it, the targeting system uses a sighting telescope, so you look through something and effectively look at the target. Once, generally in SALCOS, it would then align the target with an infrared seeker, which would see infrared stuff on the back, exhaust, that sort of thing, and then it does its calculations and launches. But on StarStreak, it uses a targeting system with a similar idea. So the technology it uses is called beam riding, the beam riding principle, where, again, this is massively oversimplified. A signal, this beam, in this case a laser, is directed towards the target. Once the beam has detected where the target is, and it says, effectively we've locked on, we've tracked its movement, and we have found it, it points towards the center of the target, and it tries to remain there as best as possible, and it does not move. It points towards the center of the target and the desired point of impact, and then the missile is launched and then directed towards the center of the beam. Meaning for this first stage propulsion, it might not necessarily be so maneuverable, but it doesn't have to be, because it's literally just tracking the target and going towards it as best as possible. When it's reached its 3rd stage of life, as it were, when the submunitions, the darts, actually split off, it gets far more complicated, and there's a lot more computing power which goes into this. So each dart, despite being fairly small, uses 2 laser beams, effectively in sort of a cross, and creates a 2-dimensional matrix. So it knows its own position within this matrix, and it knows its target's position within this matrix, which is basically forward. And so it can position itself and the target, and it steers itself towards the target as best as possible, towards the direction of the target, towards the center of this laser-created matrix. So I think that's going to be it. I have managed to keep this fairly short for something which is so complex, which I'm rather pleased with, but I really, really recommend you go check out a video of StarStreak in action. It's just incredible technology, and the technology behind it really is the start of, or the start of real new age computer technology being utilized in a fast-paced sort of environment, where you utilize computers for the tracking, and they can do really, really quick calculations in order to create these matrices, which can then find the target. And that's largely where we've actually moved on to today, with sort of semi-active radar homing and various combination methods. So I think I've given it a reasonably good explanation. That will be it.